There's no way they can believe I'm a spy. More military started to surround me. They just dropped me between these two garage doors with barbed wire. No lighting, broken windows, bugs all over the ground. They've taken my cell phone, and it's at that point like my life started flashing before me.
Hi everybody, my name is Chris Howe and welcome back to the YouTube channel. On this week's episode, we are starting a brand new series called Production Horror Stories. Now you probably clicked on this video because you saw this title right here. Well, let's just dive right into it. Introducing my friend, Chris Hughes. Tell us this crazy story.
Oh, let me take a breath of fresh air. Roughly 4 years ago, I found myself in Havana, the center of Havana, with a friend that I met, a Cuban friend that I met, and we were looking up and we saw two beautiful big buildings with big faces on it, and I broke out my drone. So I thought, let me get a good aerial shot of these buildings so I could take home and show my friends and family. As I began to fly the drone, I was big smiles, and a military officer walked over to me and
That's my worst fear.
started shouting at the drone, right? First and foremost, yes, I'm flying a drone. Yes, drones were relatively new at that time, and the majority of people didn't even know what a drone was. So he was yelling and screaming at me in Spanish. I brought the drone down. More military started to surround me, and it's at that point like my life started flashing before me, right? The friend that I was with, that was Cuban, they immediately broke us apart. We went two separate police cars to what you would only presume to be like a movie set type jail / police office, like no lighting, broken windows. I could hear him in the next room getting yelled at. I was getting yelled at. And the basics of this whole thing is like we were being pointed at as being American spies. So what went from like let's just have a friendly drone aerial shot in the park to were you aware that Fidel Castro was in the building that you happened to be filming?
Oh, it was all circumstantial.
Yeah, and how did you know that he was going to be there, and who are you working for? So that was the beginning of a nightmare, basically a nightmare.
Oh, okay. So how are you feeling at this time? Like what's going through your head? What's the situation like?
Yeah, it's tough because like it was all happening so fast. Nobody spoke English, and my Spanish is like enough to order a decent meal at a restaurant, right? So the whole idea is they're
now you got to fight for your life. In
yeah,
this
now
jail.
right, and there's nobody I can call upon. They've taken my cell phone. At that point, like memories of my wife and my children, like what's going on here, you know, because like being Canadian, I'm used to if something goes wrong, there's always a way out of it. Okay, like pick up the phone, call a lawyer, do something, call a friend.
Yeah.
But now I'm in a Cuban jail in which nobody knows I'm at, right? Because they've taken everything away from me. I'm being yelled at, and once again, normally I can talk myself out of a situation, but now no one understands what I'm saying. So I'm just sitting there looking like a guilty spy for the United States government. And to make it even funnier, it's like I'm trying to think, how did you come up with the concept that I'm Canadian? I'm not from the U.S. Well, they've gone through my phone. They made me type in my PIN number to see all the calls I've made.
Yeah.
And going through my phone, they were able to find my wife, children, and I at the White House. Like a picture out, like the tourist type picture in front of the White House.
So they just assume.
So the assumption is like, when is the last time you spoke to President Obama? And I'm like, Obama, right?
What?
So it was quite an experience. It was intensive. The first day was about 14 hours of questioning. And even every step along the way, I'm thinking, okay, there's no way they can believe I'm a spy.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't even make any sense.
I don't know, those glasses are pretty spy-like.
Yeah. And at every point, I'm thinking, okay, like they've yelled at me enough. They're going to let me go back to my hotel and resume my vacation. And because I didn't understand what was going on, there was, you know, like the whole scary part of this whole happening was just the not knowing.
You had mentioned when we were chatting and I heard this story that you got like quote unquote life in prison.
Right.
Can you explain what that means in terms of your situation?
Right. So after I got yelled at the police station, and what they'll call is interrogated, but me not understanding the language, they said, okay, come in the car. And even at that point, they didn't tell me where I was going, what was going on. The car pulls up into this garage, like where one door opens. and then the other door closes behind you. So I
This is like a movie.
still at that point don't know, because I don't know the city enough to know where I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe they're going to hold me until the airport tomorrow. Like at that point, they took all my suitcases. So they put me in this. It's funny because they just dropped me between these two garage doors with barbed wire, and the car left. And I'm asking, like, what's going on? And he just left me there. So for hours, I was just sitting alone in a square room with no like signage, like no understanding of where I was even at. And then a man came over with the prison, what I would know to be a prison guard.
Yeah.
And he says, "Come." And like then it's kicking in, like, well, I'm at a prison. How long am I going to be here? What type of prison is this? Like, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm getting out tomorrow. So as they strip search you and take all your stuff, I'm asking the man, like, how long am I here? Right? And they're like laughing. Like to them, it's like, haha, oh, tomorrow.
Yeah.
So when I got into the cell, it was like middle of the night. So there was no one else. I couldn't even see if there were other people in the cells, right? But it was one person per cell. I had like 3 beds. And as once again, it's like what you would imagine a Cuban cell to be, right? Like bugs all over the ground, no windows. Like you have, and once again, what do I expect? Okay. Like
Yeah.
I did something wrong. So I'm in that situation because I did something wrong.
That seems like a very
Right.
intense extreme, though.
I know, but the biggest thing is like the first, like we're from Canada, okay? So we have a privilege that most people don't have already in third world countries and around the world. So yes, I was flying a drone illegally in a country that I was visiting. So that was the first part. I don't expect like 5-star treatment, right? But it's still an eye opener when you walk in and there's no electricity. Like the guard to turn the light on literally went like this and put 2 pieces of metal together. That was the beginning of, a long stay, which seemed even longer. Like every day, when am I going to get out of here? When can I talk to my wife? When can I talk to my family? So the next morning, there was one gentleman that wasn't far from me that was from Russia. That is doing over 2 years right now. Like, I don't know if he's still there, but he's doing over 2 years in the prison, and he spoke a little English. So I shout across and just asked him, like, how long were you here? Or
Yeah.
how long? He's like, I've been here 2 years. I got in an argument with my Cuban wife. And I'm thinking, 2 years for getting in an argument with and I'm flying a drone for the U.S. Obama.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it was definitely a scary cycle of just not knowing absolutely anything.
Okay, so obviously you're here. You got out. What happened? How long were you in jail, and how did you get out of jail?
So I ended up spending 13 days in that cell, and because I was in the investigation stage, I was never allowed out of the cell.
Yeah.
Where other people could get some outdoor activity, I was locked inside a room.
Yeah.
I'd say by day 3, my wife not hearing from me from day 1,
Yeah.
she thought something was up. So she called the Canadian Embassy in Ottawa, and they have a team of people that will find you if you're in the hospital, in jail, or you died abroad. Like that's their job.
It's good to know.
So
First
by
time
day
hearing it.
3, like to the excitement, for the first time, I heard somebody speaking English.
Yeah.
So they said, Chris, come in. The Canadian consulate has sent somebody. And it's funny because it's like a movie. Like we went in this little dirty room with like old leather couches. Like it looked like a motel,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they let me see the Canadian consulate, the representative from the Canadian consulate for the first time. And it was like all this pressure that was on me of people not knowing where I was. Like, oh, I could breathe.
Yeah, you have
easy
at least been found.
because at least somebody knows I'm there, right? So we weren't allowed to talk alone.
Yeah.
Everything was recorded, like with big cameras, a lot of people sitting around. And the woman asked me, like, what do you suggest, Chris? What can I do? I said, well, tell my family I'm okay.
Yeah.
And like, how long am I going to be here? And she's like, Chris, we have a good relationship with Cuba, but you have to let them do what they want to do. You can't fight them. Like you can't.
Yeah.
And her advice was, don't be aggressive. If you want to get out of here anytime soon, really calm down, respect their process, even though we don't know what their process is. She's like, can I get you anything? I'm like, if you can get me anything, because I'm just sitting in a cell.
Yeah.
She's like, I'll try to get you a book. She asked them, can he have a book? They're like, no, nothing. So I just asked her, like, can you give me an estimate how long you think I'll be here?
Yeah.
And she's told me she doesn't know. It could be 2 years. It could be 20 years. and going once again, that breath of fresh air that I had by seeing her turned back into like anxiety and nightmare. Being a father of 3 young children, and at night and during the day, all I'm thinking about is like me coming out of a Cuban prison at 60 years old with my children married and stuff. So I mean, that part was the
It
most
could have been a reality.
difficult
Yeah.
part. And I said, do you think it will help if we went to the media and just said like Canadian in jail?
Yeah.
She's like, no, don't try to embarrass the Cuban government, right? It's not going to work. They'll use you as an example and keep you here longer.
How did you get out?
It was amazing because like on the 12th day, I was trying to befriend the guards. The guards were actually really nice young military.
Yeah.
And there was a point during this whole process that I came up with this brilliant idea that if I was sick, I would sleep more.
Yeah.
Because when you're like, I can't even sit still now, never mind 24 hours a day in a little cell.
Yeah.
So I came up with this idea, like, let me do a hunger strike and somehow make myself sick to the point where I have no energy and I sleep more.
Yeah.
But the guard, after 4 days, I wouldn't eat or drink. The guard would say, Chris, please. That was his only thing he could say. Like he actually cared, right? So after day 4, I started eating again. It didn't help me. It didn't make me sleep more. It just made me hungrier, right? But on like the 12th or 13th day, he snuck me out into the yard by myself. So the yard is like a cage, metal everywhere. But for the first time in almost 2 weeks, I was allowed outside. And I was so excited. And he'd tell me, like, if I continue eating proper every day, he'll sneak me outside. Or on the 12th or 13th day, I'm laying outside, like in my underwears, just enjoying the sun, knowing I only have an hour. And I'm starting to hear things. I'm hearing somebody speaking English, but saying my name. And I'm looking around because I'm in this like cage. And I'm like, there's no way. I'm like, who are these people speaking in English? And then the sergeant of the military of Cuba, a different person I hadn't met, spoke perfect English, was there with the Canadian government saying, we've decided that you're innocent of all charges. And it happened so fast, man. It happened from me like basking in the sun to like me being in this little corner room where they're like, you're innocent. And I already had built up in my mind, I'm going to be there for years.
Yeah.
So they told me I'm innocent. The military shook my hand and said, we apologize that it took 2 weeks to go through this. They said nothing in the world is more important than the people of Cuba. So they'll do anything to keep the government safe, which I understood. He said that I will get the drone back. We'll give you the drone. We'll
get the drone back.
Give you the footage. They eliminated the footage in which Fidel Castro was in the building.
Yeah.
He said, you're welcome to come back to Cuba anytime. He said, go home, bring your drone home, come back tomorrow, and we have open arms for you. Like Cuba welcomes you back.
Yeah.
And then the next part was like, get me out of here. I'm ready. I'm ready to go home. And they said like the next flight is in 2 days. So they brought me, and it's not, I don't know, for the people that have been to Cuba, it's not like Canada where you can just buy a ticket online.
Yeah.
Like you have to go line up in long kiosks and find somebody that will sell you a ticket.
Yeah.
So that whole process took place with me in handcuffs and shackles with police around me, everybody watching me, right? 2 days later, I was able to buy a ticket. And the funny thing is like the whole process included me going from the prison, even though I befriended the guards and they were like laughing with me and happy for me.
Yeah.
The guards were doing their job and they had me shackled up. So even going through the airport in Havana, it's like they're holding me and everybody looking at me like I'm a real criminal.
Yeah.
But I was just so happy to get on that airplane. Nobody would sit beside me because they walked me in. Everybody that was in that row got up and left, right? And I felt so incredibly good that I was just on my way home. And that's how I got out.
I'll end on 2 questions. One, you mentioned that you were like grateful to go through that experience. Can you elaborate on that thought process?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't regret anything I've done in life. And there's definitely times where I've made mistakes. I've done things I shouldn't have. The far majority of the time, I'm able to talk my way out of it and just chalk it up as an experience. It changed me as a father. It changed me as a person. Like, we all talk about it. We hear about it that our life could end at any point.
Yeah.
Most of the time people think that's through a car accident or something along those lines. But me being a solo traveler, it just like it woke me up to the fact that I have to be careful what I'm doing in other countries because a simple mistake or slip up or breaking the rules could end up in the manner it did.
Yeah.
So it is a story that I'm glad I have. It's not like I regret doing it. I don't think about if I could go back in time, would I do it again? Because it happened, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have visited Cuba since then, and I've got so many great memories from the country. So I'm not anti-Cuba. It was just the process itself and the not knowing the language, which was the most difficult part for me.
Dude, I'm super inspired after talking to you and hearing the stories and just also your outlook on life. With this opportunity right now, do you have any messages for the people that are watching or anything that you'd like to say?
Yeah, for sure. Travel. Like if you're an adventurous type person, and even if you're not, I really believe that the best experiences that you'll have in life are through travel. And some of my best experiences in life have come through just not knowing where I'm going to end up tomorrow, and learning along the way. So my advice is to travel.
I love it. If you guys want to go check out Chris, I'll leave all his links in the description below. He has 2 YouTube channels. You can go follow him on Instagram too. The guy is a giant bucket of inspiration. We would love to have you back on the channel again in the future. If you guys like this video, please press like. It actually makes a difference. Subscribe and hit the bell to be notified for future videos. And we will most definitely catch you guys in the next one. We're going to end off with the drone shots that Chris got from the drone that was returned from him that brought him to jail. Thanks everyone for watching.
Bye.